In this video, I'm going to share with you a client acquisition strategy that, number one, no other agents are doing, and that B, if you start to do this at the beginning of every year, based on my experience and my belief working with other agents, that this one strategy will get you more new clients than potentially all of your other strategies that you're using for the entire year. And so before we jump into this strategy, a lot of you have been asking, hey, Brandon, is your new script book out? Where can I find the new scripts? Well, it is out. Okay. There's a link right in the description underneath this video. Just have to hit expand and you can get access to all of my brand new scripts. So inside of there, you're going to have all the new scripts for all the different prospecting lead sources. You're going to get access to all the objection handlers, the different questioning strategies, all of that. You can now get access to it. There's a link to it in the description. All right. So what are we actually talking about? We are referring to this strategy that we call the annual real estate review. And so I think the first concept to help the audience really put their minds around this thing is if we look at this concept of assets under management. So when I coach a real estate agent, this is like how I think about this is if you think about how a lot of practitioners build their business, like a CPA, where they're doing an annual tax review because they're going to get paid when they do your taxes year after year after year after year. If you look at a financial planner who's managing your assets, who is meeting with you all the time, you're giving that person money to invest. That person gets paid year after year after year after year. Same thing with an insurance agent, reviewing all your insurance. So when I coach an agent, I say, listen, what if you thought about your business just a little bit differently in that you're getting out of a transactional mindset and into what I think most agents would tell you anyway, which is a relationship mindset. You see, Steve, you know this, but the audience always tells us that they would prefer to build a business off past client, center of influence referrals and not have to do any cold marketing or any cold prospecting to strangers. They would prefer to do that. They don't have a strategy around that, like we're going to show them today. So I always tell them, what if you changed your mindset that every house you sold went into your book of business with assets under management? In other words, every single relationship in your database became a real estate portfolio of houses that you would actually manage over the lifetime of someone living in that home. What would happen to your business? And so this strategy we call the annual real estate review. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to teach the audience today how to do exactly what I just said, is to build a deeper relationship with the people that you say you want to serve in such a way that no other real estate agent has ever done before, ever, with this annual real estate review. And so from the highest level, all right, we're going to get into all the tactical pieces today. This is why I asked Steve to come on to this. I mean, you're going to learn so much in this video that will translate into you providing value in the real world. But like from the highest level, the annual real estate review, here's the big idea. The big idea is that you would take the month of January only and focus on doing at least 20 in-person, face-to-face meetings in the homes of your past clients or your favorite sphere of influence, or maybe even your referral partners. And we're going to show you exactly what you do at this meeting so that, number one, obviously, if they're looking to do something this year, you are in that business. But more importantly, this strategy allows you to win the top of mind awareness game, so much so because the person's so blown away that you get more new clients out of this one tactic in January than you would doing anything else in the future. And so that's what I want people to wrap their heads around first, is to say, I'm selling these houses, but what if I actually manage the homes that I'm selling because they are people's assets, they're part of their wealth creation. If I manage that the same way a CPA would manage their client or their book of business, the same way a financial planner manages their book of business. Anything you want to add to that before we get into the tactical piece?
No, that's right.
All right. So obviously this is a video. You can go back and watch this as many times as you need to. But let me show you guys how this looks. All right. So I'll share my iPad and we'll dive into this thing. So we start off with the who. All right. So just a couple thoughts on this is that you can obviously do more if you want, but if you just focused in January to have 20 in-person meetings, I promise you, this will give you enough new business probably to last you the entire year, but certainly to start your year off right. And so the who do you want to focus on these 20 meetings with? This is what we would recommend. Number one is all of your past clients, all of the people that you sold a house to 1 year ago. Specifically, we're talking about why that should be such a focus. So somebody that's in their first year of home ownership, that'd be a huge target. Then I would say maybe your favorite sphere of influence. These are people that maybe you haven't done a deal with, but you really, really want to earn their business now or in the future. Referral partners. So this would be like people you want to earn referral business from this up and coming year, or any hot leads that you're working on, you can make this offer to. Hot leads would be like, as an example, on January 1st, if you're watching this video in time, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of expired, canceled, and withdrawn listings. This would be a great opportunity to make those people an offer that no other real estate agent or loan officer has ever made them, ever. And so you're going to want to do this, just as a side note. You want to make sure that you do these meetings with your loan officer partner. And so that's why I've invited mine, who's the best in the business, Steve Frost, to help us go through the annual real estate review strategy. So that's the who. Now, let's talk about the how. So the how is, and the question that you and I were talking about, Steve, is we know that every single agent and every loan officer wants more referral business. They want to do more business with people that they know, and they want to do more business with the people that they know, who they know. The objection that you and I always get from agents is, well, what do I say? I don't want to just be the annoying person who just calls and asks for referrals. How would I set up this meeting? Like, what would I actually say? And this is like your zone of genius. And this makes so much sense that in December, that's why we're making this video right now, day after Christmas, they would start this whole thing off with a December phone call talking about the winter tax bill and their escrow account. Can you speak to that for a second and why that's so important and why that call is so easy?
Yeah, because so in Michigan, and some states are a little bit different, but everybody gets tax bills usually twice a year. And for me, I just keep it super simple in my simple brain. And it's, I want to have a reason to talk to people without calling in with my hand out. So it's just when people buy a new home, it always, the taxes always go up, and there's different reasons for how everybody does it. In Michigan, there's a limit to how much your property taxes can go up every year based on, the equalized value of your home and your previous year's taxes and all that. So in our world, it usually takes it can be between 6 months or it can be 18 months before this actually impacts their payment. And I always make the joke. I'm like, look, your mortgage payment and your escrow account, your taxes, they change twice a year. They do it during back to school shopping and Christmas shopping. That's the only time here they do it. I have 3 daughters. It couldn't be a worse time of year. So I call these clients, I make my Christmas and back to school joke. And then I just go right into asking, did your taxes change yet? And then it's literally a conversation that I have with every client every year, because it's a change in their mortgage payment. And it's a reminder, hey, check again, going back to managing this financial thing, because a lot of Americans, as much as we all want to be diverse, we want to be really sophisticated with our finances, most of us are just happy things are on auto pay and we're just out here surviving, And so is when that's like an easy, right? Hey, check your auto pay. Have you this? And then you can get into, from a real estate perspective, talking about property values in the neighborhoods and setting up those meetings. But this is just a very easy lead in to all of that.
That's right. So that's such a great point. So don't overthink this. This is happening whether you're talking about it or not. And you're the one that is bringing this to an awareness that other professionals in their life probably aren't. And so that's the purpose of the call. So that every December, okay, it starts with, hey, did you get that winter tax bill? Did it change your mortgage payment? And then what we can do in that call is we could talk about potentially getting together to do the annual real estate review. Now, when we're having that conversation, okay, this is over a phone call. We want to build in some scarcity. We want to build in some urgency. How? We're explaining to the people that, listen, in January, what I like to do is I have about 20 slots available. And if you and Joe want to meet with me, that's fine. If not, that's okay too. But what I do with my really good past clients is I'm going to look at 4 different things. And if you guys wanted to get together for maybe about an hour, we do an annual real estate review. And so what does that mean specifically? There are 4 things, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, that you're going to get from our meeting. Number 1 is to how to increase the value of your home. That'd be the first thing we would go over. Number 1, how to increase your monthly cash flow. Number 3, your debt reduction strategies. We'll walk you through all of those. And then number 4, how to increase what we call borrowing power. And so these are the 4 things that you would walk away from in that 60 minutes. And so if you guys wanted to, this would be the tangible value add that you'd be offering, the WIFM, the what's in it for me. Why would I want to meet with you for 60 minutes? That's what you're going to say. Now, in preparation of this meeting, here's what we're going to ask the client to prepare, okay? So ideally, right, you would ask them to do some type of credit pull because of the analysis that you're going to offer at this meeting, for them to have a mortgage coupon ready, have their homeowner's insurance declaration page ready to review. And just as a note, a side note, you're going to, in your preparation, ask your insurance agent, who should be one of your referral partners already, to give them a quote for you to bring. So hopefully you're partnered with an insurance agent who has access to multiple different carriers, and they can produce 3 or 4 different quotes from homeowners insurance from 2 to 3 different carriers to bring with you at that meeting, and then a copy of their escrow statement. These are all things that we need to conduct the annual real estate review. Anything that I missed that you think we should add there, Steve?
Nope.
All right. Now, we're going to get into kind of the tactical part of the meeting. Again, I just want you to wrap your head around, okay, these people are doing this with their other professionals in their life already. They're already doing this with a CPA or an accountant. They're already doing this with somebody who is managing their retirement. It only makes sense that you're part of their financial team. I could just hear agents in their head right now, like, wow, this just seems, yeah, it's very different. You keep saying you want to serve your database, you want to earn more referrals, more repeat business, then you have to do things that are different than what other agents are doing. Most agents, as you know, Steve, are sending cookie recipes over the holiday and then hoping they're going to get referrals. I just sent you a really good chocolate chip recipe. Nobody cares about the automated, templated emails that come out of your CRM that are absolutely useless. And so we're talking about providing real, tangible value, all right? Doing these meetings in January like a real professional that you call yourself. All right, structure of the meeting. These are typically 1 hour in length, okay? It starts off with a property tour. Then you're going to get into your CMA presentation to establish property value, followed by then a mortgage review. So in the mortgage review, we're going to look at the unpaid balance and the current interest rate. We're going to use that in the analysis in just a second. We're going to establish the client's current equity position. We're going to review outgoing debt and minimum payments. Again, we're going to use all of this for the substance of the analysis in just a minute. And then we're going to review the client's annual plans for the year or their goals. Do they have any vacations, renovations, moving, etc.? We need to know the goal so that we can tie the analysis that we're going to show you guys how to do in just a second to those goals. And then we're going to review the cash flow strategies and debt reduction. All right. So that's the hierarchy of that 1 hour that you're going to spend with people. And then here's the analysis that you're going to do for people. All right. So here's a typical scenario of how one of these meetings would go. I always use Bob and Nancy in my examples. And so here's just a typical one. This is just what we see all the time. These people, let's just say they bought a house in March of 2023 for $500,000. And at that time, they got a loan amount for $380,000. And we'll show you here in just a second in one of the tools that we use. that a year and a half later, they owe about 378 because we know that the first year or two, most of that goes towards interest. Their current monthly payment is 2401. Their home over the last 2 years, on average, would have went up about 7% a year, so it's now worth 570,000. And we've established at the meeting, Steve, that they have an equity position of 190,000. Now, during the review, during the meeting, this is kind of what we go through. This is part of the debt conversation. So this is all being pulled from the credit report. And these are the 4 things, including their mortgage, Steve, that you see, almost all the time on an average credit report. Is that right?
Yep.
And that would be a car loan, right? Let's just say they have one car that's paid off, and then they have one car that they're purchasing. And let's just say that they owe $23,000 on that car. The car payment is $650 per month. Next, this is just all averages, by the way. You can Google all of this. That they owe about $11,000 in credit card debt. The average minimum payment on these credit cards is about $300 per month, or about 3%. They have a student loan. On average, the average American's got about $29,000 of student debt. That payment on that debt is about $475. And then personal loans, and they owe about $13,000, and they owe $189. Here's the real crux of the meeting, and then Steve, jump in at any time. All right. So what we're going to do in this analysis, the reason why we're doing this is because we want to show them strategies on wealth creation. So wealth creation is increasing their overall value and subtracting out any type of bad debt from their life. How do we help them to create wealth? This is what we mean by providing value at the annual real estate review. So obviously you wouldn't do this on an iPad. You'd have all this printed off. The first phase, okay, the first phase in wealth creation is we have to look at cash flow. So the first thing that we analyze at the meeting is we add all of their outgoing debt obligation. That's right here on this list. So what does it currently look like? And in this example, their current monthly outgoing obligation is just over $4,000, $4,015. The way in which you got that, right? We added up all their minimum payments on their credit report, in addition to their monthly mortgage payment, which gives us a total of $4,015. So far, so good, Steve? I miss anything?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right on.
All right. So in phase 1 of the conversation, we're talking about cash flow first. What we would propose is paying off all of their bad debt and restructuring their mortgage debt in such a way where it would now be one loan. And so I'll just share my screen so people can kind of see what's going on here, the difference. So if I go like this and I go like this, you could see my screen. You can see this?
Yep.
All right. So this is their current world, right? Their loan amount was $380,000. Their interest rate, because they bought it in March of 2023, was something around 6.5%. They're paying $2,400 a month. Now, in addition to what we just talked about, them owing on that credit report, we talked about restructuring their debt obligation and paying off everything, right, Steve? So we would pay off all of that bad debt. We put all of that bad debt and all of those multiple payments and checks that they're writing every month, and we put it into one loan. And we would, right now at current interest rates, call it 6.75%. Their new monthly mortgage payment would be $29.57. However, when we look at their overall outgoing debt versus their new obligation, remember they were paying $4,015. Their new monthly mortgage payment, which includes all of their debt, would be $29.57. They'd be saving over $1,000 a month. You just created out of thin air, out of a phone call that you made to a past client or center of influence or a hot lead or a referral partner, $1,000 monthly increase in their income or their cash flow. And Steve, you do these all the time. Is that right?
All the time. Yep, absolutely.
And so like when we talk about tangible value, I don't know about you, but I don't know how many phone calls you're getting every day where somebody can show you how to just make another $1,000 a month out of absolute thin air. So this is the phase one of what we call value creation or wealth creation. Anything you want to add to phase one before we get into phase two?
No, other just the hurdle of feeling weird talking to people about these things. But if I always take that very professional approach with finances, and this is no, and most people are comfortable talking about this. Number one, number two, you're not going to be the first person they had this conversation with. So it's not there. This is like a very, very common thing that we go through.
Yeah. Yeah, it is common, but I would argue that it's not. I mean, when we show this to clients, they've never thought about restructuring the debt in this format.
Right. People don't see. I'm just saying, like, it's because I know for me, like some of the feedback I've gotten with agents, it's just like I feel kind of weird asking them about all these things, and it's as long as you're always in that coming from that place of being a professional and helping them and walking through this and understanding it by watching these videos or doing research and putting yourself in their shoes, then it's a lot easier. But yeah, and that just to kind of get over that hurdle, it's not the first time. Like these people know this, and if you have a solution for it that you've come with, then it really is it's something they're very open to.
Well, the thing is, number one, to that point, and we'll keep going to phase two in a second, is if you're uncomfortable talking about this, the depth of value that you can actually create in someone's life is very surface level. And if you're sitting there as a real estate agent saying, wow, these are pretty deep conversations, well, no wonder your relationships are very, very surface level. No wonder they don't look at you as part of their financial team. No wonder you're not viewed as a trusted advisor. You were looked at as a commodity. You were looked at a glorified door opener. That's how you were viewed. And so if you can't get past having real conversations with people and serving them, truly serving them, not just pleasing people, but serving them at a high level, you can't call yourself part of their financial team. You can't look at yourself in your career the same way that they look at their CPA, financial planner, or mortgage loan officer. You can't put yourself in that equation. And therefore, the amount of value that you could add to someone's life is very, 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 very small. And so we're talking about the realness of life, and you could be the person, the quarterback of this, the leader of this. And so I would encourage all of you, because once you get permission, everything's permission based. Hey, this is what I'm offering. This is what I'd like to do for you. And the person said, that'd be amazing. I've never had anybody do that before. Everything changes. All right. So now let's get into phase two of the meeting, or again, what I would call wealth creation. So we talked about restructuring their debt in a way that increases cash flow. We're accomplished there. Bingo. All right. Now, this is just the start of this thing. The second part of the meeting, okay, in wealth creation is saying, okay, well, let's just look at this your overall debt obligation and see kind of what this thing looks like. And so I think the better way to do this is actually bring up this tool that I showed them just a minute ago. And this is crazy. I mean, this is like what you have to be able to do as a real estate agent to really, 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 again, provide value to these people. All right. So their current world is they owe this $380,000 on this mortgage, plus all the other debts that we just talked about, plus all the other debts. And if they didn't change, they change nothing. They change absolutely nothing. They'd end up, that $500,000 house, they'd end up paying $484,000 in just interest over the life of the loan. In other words, that house that they bought for $500,000 would end up costing them $864,000 just for that home. If they change nothing, these payments amortized over 30 years, and all of you should know this, that the early years is all going towards interest. That person, in addition to all of their other bad debt, would be paying $864,000 or $484,000 in interest alone. See if that makes sense? Anything to add there?
Oh.
What we're proposing, you to show up like the the value creator that you are, we restructure that debt all into one loan. That loan amount would be $456,000. Again, this is all of their debt, okay? Everything that they owe into one loan at 6.75%. Their new payment on that debt would be $2,957. Now, remember, they're saving $1,000 a month. If we recommend to them in the second half of the wealth creation meeting to say, listen, take half of the savings, $500, okay? Apply this to that payment every single month. Now watch what happens. Now, they're going to save $6,000 a year every year after your meeting, right? So if we look at this and we say, okay, this mortgage, first off, gets paid off 10 years sooner. So rather than it taking 30 years to pay off all this debt, now it takes them 10 years less. Oh, by the way, they're saving $6,000 a year. So that's another $60,000 over that same period of time that you put in their pocket out of thin air. And oh, by the way, if you look at the difference between interest that they paid, it's about $100,000 in interest that you would have saved this person, in addition to the $500 in monthly cash flow you would have created out of nothing. Just by restructuring the debt and using this strategy to their advantage. Your thoughts on that, Steve?
Oh, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, when we look at this, it's just that to your point, most realtors don't look at themselves as this person to help them create wealth. They say, oh, I'll just leave that to my financial planner. Well, you could be the quarterback of this, the one making recommendation to your referral partners, and the one showing up in these people's life to say, this was amazing. And not sitting back on your hands to say, to your point, I think this is what you were saying before, of like, other people are having these conversations with your clients. It'd be a lot better if it was coming from you. I guess that's my point, you know?
Yeah. And the thing you have to keep in mind, and the financial advisor thing is always interesting to me. So I have a financial person, you have a financial person, everybody's got a person, right? Like those guys are out there the same way working during your business. But what a financial planner does is they take the money that you have that is not spoken for, and they put it in a market, and they hope to grow that money that you have. The one thing that you as a real estate agent, look, this is very like a mortgage oriented conversation, right? Like when you're talking about the finances, the debt and all that, and you can refer them to the mortgage person. As a realtor, you don't have to get into that nitty gritty. Ideally, your mortgage person's there, but if they're not, it's okay. What you have here though, using that equity is you're the person that has the tool. Like this is part of your toolbox that you can access with the client. The financial advisor isn't going to pull the equity out of their home. They're not going to do a market review on the value of their home with them and how much equity they have. And they're not, and they may, and there are advisors. I'm not saying that they wouldn't make the same recommendation for you, but you're like as a realtor and a mortgage person, we're really the front line for this kind of thing. And if you're wondering if this borrower goes back to a financial advisor, like, look, this agent or this mortgage guy called me and they're talking about using my home equity to consolidate my debt, and then it's going to free up cash flow for me and it's going to pay my house out. Like every financial advisor is happy to have that conversation with you because it's putting them in a position to help that client more too. And then also it gets them into a position where, look, if they have that debt, then it's very important that that person get that house paid off by the time they retire. And I know a lot of us don't think about this. We have these hopes and these dreams and we're saving, we're doing all these things, right? But a lot of people, their retirement is based on them not having a mortgage. So if you can say like, hey, you wanted to retire in 20 years, or when we bought this house, you said this was your last house. That's great. Like, let's stay on that. This is your last house. It's time to create an exit strategy for the damn mortgage. Like, we got to get out of that thing. Let's get your dad in here, free up cash flow and get rid of that if this is your last house. So it's important that you remember that you're on the front line of being able to pull those strings to do that.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can't say you care and know this information after watching this video and not say anything to your client. Now you're armed with the information. You can't sit there and say, I don't know what to do to provide value to my database to get referrals. Now you do. And so now you can't not see this and not say anything to anybody, because there's a couple other things I want to talk about. So that's the part of fulfilling on the promise of the offer you made of like, hey, we're going to talk about some ways in which you can increase cash flow just by changing a couple little things and minimizing the amount of outgoing debt by so we talked about those two things. Now, the other piece in the meeting that we didn't discuss is the reviewing of the information that people are looking at that they don't know what they're looking at. So two things specifically is in the annual real estate review is reviewing their escrow account. Can you speak to that? And then I want to talk about the last thing.
Yeah. So this is real. I mean, as for me and my business and the people that work for me, this is a really, really important piece of the puzzle is staying in touch, especially the first year to 2 years of somebody owning a home, because here's what happens. And if this has never happened to you, then you'll experience it at some point. Or if you don't own a home, this is part of it. But what happens is every municipality is different in how they change your taxes and the taxable value of your home, what your tax rates are going to be. But one thing is the same. The taxes always go up and the mortgage payment always goes up. But there's a couple pieces of that. And so when your mortgage payment, if you have an escrow account, is going to change, you get what's called an escrow analysis from your lender. So it's an additional piece of mail. They always send it in the mail and they send it to you in your email if you're set up on paperless, but it is very, very important. The email ones are like a PDF file. What they're going to do is they're going to tell you like your projected escrow balance, how much you have in your escrow account, how much you're going to need. And it does it all in cartoons and bubble letters. Now it's really easy to understand if you read it, or if you call your mortgage person and have them walk you through it. But two things happen. So your payment, so let's just use easy numbers. So if you own a home and your property taxes are $2,400 per year, every month you pay $200 to your lender and you put it in a little piggy bank. And then when your taxes come due for that $2,400, the mortgage company, they get an electronic alert from a system, and then their system sends the money out. We don't call Nancy in the treasurer's office. None of that happens. It's all automated. So what happens is when your mortgage payment, you're making this and you're working and you're building up your escrow account. Well, now you bought a house from somebody that lived there for 39 years and your taxes are going to go from $2,400 to $4,800. So now your taxes doubled. And so your mortgage payment, instead of collecting $200 a month, now has to collect $400 a month. So your mortgage payment went up $200 a month. Okay, hopefully in the process, you've had the conversation about property taxes. I know I harp on it all the time, but you know that this is coming. Like, okay, but my taxes went up $2,400 a year, but my mortgage payment went up $400. Like, I can't afford this. Like, what happened? So with the mortgage world and the taxing authority world is they ping the lender and they say, you owe us $4,800 for the taxes. The lender ships the $4,800 out. And then all of a sudden an alarm bell goes off and they go, oh, the escrow account's short. We're supposed to have this projected balance, but now that projected balance is going to be $2,400 short. No problem. We paid it for you. You can either write us a check right now to this PO box for $2,400, or we are going to automatically raise your payment an additional $200 a month for the next 12 months to pay us back. And so when that happens, your buyer or your seller, whoever it is, your person, your client, their mortgage payment now 12 months after moving into the home during Christmas or back to school shopping, they either got a $2,400 bill or their payment went up $400 a month. Now, your little loan, it'll get paid off in 12 months. So it'll go back down to only going up $200 a month. But for a year, payment's $400 higher a month. If you're ahead of this and they're aware of that and you're calling to say like, hey, let's work through that and see what kind of options there are. Is a refinance something that we need and that your lender can make sense of it for you? If there's a lower rate or whatever you can do, how can you offset these things in order for it not to be that big of an impact? And most people, and they're going to be okay, right? If they have to pay it and it's more, but it's just the not knowing why. But if you're there as the expert, like, oh, so you got your escrow analysis, like that makes total sense. Can we set up a time? Like I'll do it with my clients. I'm like, hey, let's set up a time to do a phone call. In the meantime, send me a picture on the phone you can text it or email it of the escrow analysis statement. If it's on your computer, forward it to me, whatever you want to do, but get me pictures of all these things. And that way you have the information in front of you and you can analyze that with them. You can do this if you're in like, so Pennsylvania, you pay a city tax, a county tax, and a school tax, right? So there's 3 or 4 different tax bills that come out. Every time your clients are getting a tax bill, that happens 3 times a year. It's 3 really, really easy touch points to reach out and talk to people and just say, we go through your situation as a family, blah, blah, blah. Was Timmy playing baseball? And then it gets into like sponsorships and referrals and, where can we do more business and that kind of thing. But the escrow is a very, very easy one because property taxes over escrow is going to happen to everybody. So it's an easy touch point.
And again, it's stuff that everyone's going through, to your point. And it's like, if you keep calling yourself a professional, you keep calling yourself an expert, you keep using words like relationship, you keep using like, I care about these people, you're going to do this proactively. That's the whole premise of the annual real estate review. If you can't just wrap your head around, man, I don't know if I could get these meetings. You can get these meetings if you are communicating such that these are all the things we're going to review that are all going to come up for you anyways. And there are options. And then the last one that's just more, I guess, straightforward is the homeowner's insurance review, right? Yep. And so this part of the meeting is really simple. We're just looking at their homeowner's declaration page and their coverages. Okay, you can meet with your insurance agent on this. You don't need to bring them to your meeting. You're not an insurance agent, but all you're doing is you're going to look at their overall policy. So there's a couple key things that your insurance agent will have you look at. So they'll look at the annual premium, which is also part of your escrow, the overall dwelling or coverage. You're going to look at that number, okay? And then overall liability and the deductible. These are the things that you're reviewing at the annual real estate review. And then you hopefully have brought with you a couple other of quotations from some other carriers to say, okay, well, let's just see if there's any other options, saving opportunities for you. Like we always know, insurance, well, maybe you don't know, insurance companies and insurance premiums always go up and down based on carriers. How that happens is based on the prior year's carrier's loss. And so that's why you'll see 1 year State Farm, they'll have rates that are way lower than everybody else's. Why? Because the prior year losses weren't as maybe Allstate's losses. And they're having to make all these adjustments. And that's why you see these rate increases and decreases, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you hit a carrier at the right time, at the right year, you might be able to double the amount of protection for your real estate assets and cut the premium for that coverage in half. And yes, I had an insurance company for a lot of years. We used to do it all the time. So these are the areas in which that you can, if you do this right, my belief is that you can generate more opportunities as a real estate agent in this 1 month with these 20 meetings than you potentially could doing anything else for the rest of the year because of how impactful this can be. Why? Well, because imagine going through these areas that we just walked through and the perception of that from this person specifically and them being a raving fan, that's easy. But then making all the introductions to potential third-party referral partners to execute on some of these strategies. And then those referral partners saying, dude, man, that was you got me a lot of business in January and now they're fighting all year for you. It's just a really, really good opportunity for you to every year sit to yourself and say, okay, January is the slowest month in transactions. We already know that. And so I have to fill my calendar the same way my CPA does, the same way a financial planner does, and say, I'm going to do 1 meeting a day, 20 in-person, face-to-face meetings in January, doing these annual real estate reviews every single year. And if you will, this will fuel your business at the start of every single year.